You're listening to the Listing a Week podcast, a podcast that teaches real estate agents how to generate a listing a week and grow their business. My name is Todd Tramonte, and I'm a Dallas, Texas-based real estate broker, author, radio host, team leader, and real estate coach. And I'm sitting down with my team of agents to talk about how they generate a listing a week or more, the lessons they've learned, and how they differentiate in a noisy real estate industry, and how you can too.
Welcome. This is the Todd Tramonte home selling team. Oh, sorry, I jumped the gun.
Hot mic. Let it roll. We're good. That was Jeremy trying to intro the show. Hey, welcome to the Listing a Week podcast. That was the most practiced intro we've ever done. But now, appreciate you guys tuning in. We got all kinds of fun stuff to talk about. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the people that, kind of the naysayers. Hey, getting a listing a week kind of sounds bogus to me, to be honest with you. We mentioned the fact that I think people are overwhelmed by the lead generation aspect of it, and hopefully if you listen to that episode, that was kind of demystified for you. The fact that really lead generation is not the problem anymore, that there's a ton of ways you can generate these leads. You can do it for free, you can do it for cheap, you can put blood, sweat, and tears into it, you can throw money at it, but there's a lot of ways to, quote, get the leads. We talked more about how it's really a conversion issue, and then last episode, we talked about, okay, now you're getting it. Now you're getting a listing a week or more, and you've got a bunch to deal with. So what does that look like? And we talked about time management. We talked about ideal clients. We talked about kind of the compelling conversion discussions. And we talked about how it's not really primarily tools and technology that you need, although there are some great ones. So this week, I think we just want to follow that thought, and in this episode, talk about what we call a compelling reason. And we always say that, whether it's with our team, training on our team, or just helping each other convert, or it's with our coaching and consulting clients, we talk about how you've got to give people a compelling reason, and then fill in the blank with just about anything that you're trying to motivate, encourage, or persuade somebody to do, right? You got to give them a compelling reason to talk to you on the phone, to come in and meet with you, to hire you, to trust your advice and leadership. So we've got Ian Daniels, who helps lead the team here in the Dallas office as well as our Fort Worth office. We've got Jeremy Payne here, who's one of our marketing specialists. And then we've got producer Mason behind the mic, behind the camera today. We do video these things, so you can catch these on YouTube.
Which, quick note, I'm in a different seat today, and so Jeremy, you need to make sure Mason's not just playing video games.
Right, we got to keep our eye on the. I don't know what games he plays.
Do I have to talk in a British accent to sit in this seat?
Oh, that's right. We should need to switch accents.
Oi! That's all I got.
We're in trouble.
Now let's go with howdy, everybody.
That's Ian's English, American, Texan accent. So anyway, let's talk a little bit. So in the flow of selling 40, 50 listings a year, which again, if you listen to the show much or follow me at all, I hate the word listings, but we use it because it's the general industry terminology. But if you're going to sell 40 or 50 homes a year for seller clients, and your primary role is marketing and negotiating and consulting, taking great care of them, how often do we encounter this compelling reason thing? Either one of you guys.
Often. I mean, it's always happening. It's from the very, very beginning, continually throughout the process. You've got to give a compelling reason to be able to have a conversation with them, to get them on the phone to begin with, to capture their attention in the first few seconds. You've got to have a compelling reason when you go and sit down with them as to why they should hire you, a compelling reason to even allow them to sit down with you. And then sometimes throughout the process, it keeps going.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning. So, when it comes to prospecting, I think most people in residential real estate, when they think of prospecting right now, they're thinking of like headset on or cell phone glued to my face, 3 straight hours of a dialer or talking to strangers, right? Now, by all means, that's a piece of what we do here. But prospecting can include all kinds of things. It can include door knocking, open houses, networking, calling your friends and family, volunteering someplace to get to know new people. It can be all sorts of things. It's just talking to a lot of people. We always simplify that down to just talking to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But regardless of your methodology, if you're out there talking to a lot of people with the intention of engaging with some of them in a sit-down 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 conversation about potentially working together, you have got to give them a compelling reason to stay tuned, right? To stay on the phone, to stay in the conversation, to not turn and walk away, close the door in your face, bail out of your open house or whatever, right? So, Jeremy, what are some of the compelling reasons you offer or you intertwine or weave into conversations in the very early stages just to keep someone interested or engaged so that they are compelled, they are drawn to continuing to talk with you?
Yeah, no, and I've actually, it's funny you say that. I literally this morning I was kind of playing with a couple different ones because of what I'm realizing is the same compelling reason is not compelling to everybody.
Right.
So you really have to dive down and find out what is this person compelled by? What personality is this person? What is going to, are they, a very numbers-oriented person where I can tell them, hey, I will guarantee I'll sell your house over the average price and literally save you thousands of dollars and do that in under the average time where you could save thousands of dollars in mortgage payments? Or are they a person that just needs information at this point, and by telling them, I will sell your house for a ton of money is not going to drive them? And maybe something like, hey, how about, have you thought through the timeline? Have you thought about what it will look like if you do decide to sell to make sure you don't end up homeless or you don't end up with two homes at the same time?
Right.
And so kind of, there's a bunch of them, but that one, the saving them a lot of money is I think a big one for a lot of people who know they are going to sell, and it's just a matter of who are they going to choose. But adding a little value that's not directly related to the results, I think, is also important. Running a valuation to find out what their home may be worth if they're in the early stages, because they probably need to know what they're going to be able to walk away with to decide if it even makes sense to do that. Something I've been offering is, we're getting close to taxes coming out here in the next month or two, offering to provide them with something to dispute their property taxes with the appraisal district if they come in high, because around here most of them come in pretty high.
And if you're not in an area where your property taxes are a significant portion of your annual housing costs, like in the state of Texas, we don't have a state income tax. The state's going to get their money one way or the other, so we have a property tax. Now, I'll still take Texas taxes overall, but the property tax in Texas is somewhere between 2.5% and 3% for most people. So you can, if you're not from an area like this and you're tuning in, you can realize, like, let's say you have a $500,000 home. Well, that could be $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 in annual property taxes. Those are hard dollars there, even if your house is paid for. If your house is free and clear of any mortgage or debt, you've still got $1,000 a month or so in property taxes that have to get paid. So this is a big deal to people.
Yeah.
So when you think about a compelling reason to stay on the phone, if Jeremy or somebody is saying, hey, tell you what I can do for you, is I can run a quick valuation and make sure that the county is taxing you on the right property value, that, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'd be interested in that. Even if it's not like, I need that in my hot hands right now. It's like, that's something that people don't usually talk about. So I'll keep talking to this guy. What might he say next?
One thing that I think is important too to think through and remember is that two people can offer the exact same thing,
right,
and offer it in completely different ways with completely different tones and not explaining it right. And one person's going to want it and one person's not. Because we talk a lot about what are the reasons that some people in the office on the team can convert at a really high level, and then what are the reasons that somebody that's had the same training and the same scripts is maybe on a little bit of a lower level. And I firmly think it's because the way things are being explained and how are you giving that compelling reason. It's only compelling if you explain it in a way which makes it compelling.
So that's a great point. And so let's dig into both of those things. Number one, what's the thing you're trying to make compelling? What are you offering to compel them? And then how are you offering it? Because that's a great point. And you were kind of getting at like the disc profiling type stuff a minute ago with one guy wants just the hard details, and then one girl wants the story, and sometimes it's not gender specific. I'm just spreading it around, like certainly the D-type personality, the type A driver, results oriented, quick and dirty, get it done person wants to know, like, hey man, if I was able to show you how you could save $40,000 or $50,000 in the next 30 days on this thing, would you want to know? That's compelling to him. To someone who's only concerned with the health and safety of their children, that's like abrupt and rude, right? Yeah. So for that person, you're like, hey, listen, if we were able to get you guys into a safer environment with a much lower, monthly expense, so you could make further investments in a bigger fence and a security system, and so when your husband's traveling, you just felt safer. Would it be interesting if we sat down and walked you through 3 or 4 different ways we could help you do that? Oh my gosh, I feel like I could breathe if we did that. Like those are very different conversations because it's a different person. But either way, you're saying, should we get together and talk about you buying a house, or selling a house? So let's start with what I call the value stack, right? What are the things, the tools, the techniques, the little chunky bits of value that you could offer that might be valuable and compelling? Let's just kind of pepper some of those around, and then we can come back and talk about the different ways of matching, mirroring tone, and some of the negotiation strategies, some of the communication strategy, and some of the things we do uniquely because of real estate that make that value compelling in that way, so that people want to stay on the phone or want to come in or want to sign and hire you to sell their home. So what are some of the value stack things you guys like to use?
Yeah, so obviously a home valuation is probably the first and foremost piece that we do.
Okay.
You talk about it a lot on the radio show.
Right. By the way, that's not my favorite because it's so common, but it does work.
Yeah. I think more so than that, though, a great follow-on conversation, when we're calling them, the script that we're generally using for that is, hey, I saw you jumped on the website and got an automated home valuation. I just want to make sure you got all of the information that you were needing. Did you get everything you needed from that one little thing that you did? Or is there anything else that I can help you with? Would it be valuable for you if I came and did a more customized valuation for you? Would it be valuable for you if I came and had a walkthrough of the house and kind of give you some pointers and thoughts on things to improve and things not to improve, more importantly sometimes, because people are like, hey, I'm thinking I'm going to go and do this and this and this. It's going to cost me 10 grand. And we walk in and you go, no, don't do any of that.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Right.
Don't bother with it. That sometimes is even more valuable than saying, hey, go ahead and do this to add some added value. So that's kind of probably the first thing that jumps to my mind.
Well, one of the ones that I really like doing, we talked about taxes, helping them fight taxes, just as a way to stay front and center on their minds, right?
Yeah.
And to stay valuable for them, even if they're not ready. Something for somebody that's a little more serious about selling is a net sheet, and actually giving them the out the door, after expenses, after commissions, after closing costs. Here's what the number you can take and run with as you start thinking about your purchase.
And you're talking about on the phone or kind of a preliminary conversation of saying, hey, I know you're talking about maybe sort of at some point selling. Would it be valuable to you if I did a quick assessment of what you would walk away with after title fees, agent fees, all those other things? And I don't think many people are offering that. I mean, I think that's where that's differentiated.
Yeah, I think generally on the phone, I'm not going to give them a line-by-line breakdown. Right. What I'm going to say is the general, closing cost percentage you can expect is X.
Yeah.
And then what I try to do is I try to use that as leverage to create that value to where they want to meet with me, because then what I can say is, look, we don't know what your home is going to sell for, but I can give you a broad guess. Now, if you want to see, I can show you line by line how much you'd walk away with, but I'll need to see the house first.
That's what I was getting at too, is that, but then you're giving them a compelling reason to meet with you, right?
So
instead
of giving them everything.
Thing. Yeah, and you're saying is like, look, I've got time Thursday at 4:00. You guys come on into the office. All I really need to know from you at that point is just kind of a general condition of the home, any super high highs, super low lows, what you owe on your mortgage. And before we're finished talking, not only can I tell you what you should be able to walk away with in the market and what I think we might be able to get you over and above what is normal, but also a strategy of how to get there. Would that be valuable to you? It's very difficult to say, no, that would not be valuable. It's okay to be like, man, that sounds awesome, but I'm traveling, we're just not quite ready to do that. Hey, that's fine, I understand you might not be ready to do that. And then you move to something else. What else could be compelling? What else would be interesting? My absolute favorite, especially in a market like this, is what we call our private portfolio list, right? It's our in-house list of homes that are not publicly marketed, that nobody else knows about. They're not on the MLS, they're not on Zillow, they're not on Realtor.com, they're not on every agent's website, they're not on any agent's website. And I like to occasionally tell them how we create the list. Not completely how we create the list, but Some of these are sellers that we've already talked with that are not ready to put their house on the market yet. They'll probably be doing that mid to late summer. But if we brought them a buyer right now without them having to go on the market and put a sign out and let people come and see it all day long, they would be willing to sell it, and maybe for a slightly better deal because they don't have to go through all that trouble. So would it be interesting to you if I could get you into a home where you might be the only buyer that even gets to see it? Would that be exciting for you guys?
Yes, sir.
But that's the point. It's how do you say no to that? You've made it so compelling that it's like, that sounds freaking awesome.
Yeah.
We don't have the money, but I would love that.
We'll figure it out.
Right. But the point is, that's what we want to do. We want to create, like, I use kind of an MMA term, right? You don't want people just to tap out on the phone or at your open house like, oh my gosh, this guy's talking my arm off. I'll just say yes so he'll leave me alone. Yeah, okay, Thursday at 4. That one works. Great. Yep. Yep. 3 beds, 2 baths. Budget's probably $250. Hey, I gotta run. We'll talk to you then. Okay, click. That person is not showing up.
Yeah.
And if they do show up, they're showing up for like a free Coke because they're a weirdo. They're not. That's not who you want. But if they're like, yes, real quick, hold on. What was your address? Okay, I just want to make sure I put it in my calendar because we're super excited and we're like really nervous about this because of the job transfer, and I just don't feel like we're ready. And I feel like if you were able to share that stuff with us, we could breathe a little bit and just start to move forward in the process. So, okay, 4 o'clock, hold on, I just want to get this on my calendar. That's when you're like, that dude is coming to the office. He will be here, probably be early. So that's what we want to create. We want to create the compelling reason. If you have a great script, to go to Ian's side of this, you could be saying all the same things. But if it's not compelling, if it doesn't feel really value oriented, if I don't really want to come and get that from you, then I'm not going to, or I'm going to come with my guard up. So if I understand that the way you're talking is a little bit slower, not because you're slow, but because I can tell you're really thinking, your wheels are turning, and I begin to speak to you in a way that feeds into that well, that serves that well, then the game can really change. So talk about how you do that.
Tone, I think, is one of the biggest things. There's so many times that somebody jumps on the phone and because they've not internalized what it is that they're trying to say, because they've not practiced and figured it out in all different ways, they're thinking, it sounds weird, right? But they're thinking too much.
If you could wave a magic wand, when would you want to be in your house?
Right, I mean, it sounds so just...
There's thousands of agents that are using that million-year-old script every single day. Okay, Jeremy, well, if you could wave a magic wand, when would you want to be in your home?
You've got to find a way that you can...
Have you talked to anyone about financing? Okay. And is there anyone else involved in this purchase? Okay, I'm getting interrogated.
Right. We have a sheet where there's probably 40 questions on it, and if you just go through that sheet and ask them 40 questions, they're going to be fed up with you.
Yeah.
Like you've got to be able to have a conversation with somebody, relate to them, talk to them in a way which they're going to get, and go from there. I mean, it's not rocket science, but it takes practice.
Well, and I train on this stuff all the time. In one of our role play calls the other day, we were talking about basically being compelling, and we talked about you gauge that by the outcome you want to get to, right? And I gauge it on a phone call or in an initial consultation, which we'll probably talk about on an episode really soon. But in a face-to-face with a client where you're trying to get hired, what do I want them to say towards the end of that exchange, that back and forth, right? In the initial consultation with a seller, I absolutely want them to say at the end, wow, this is awesome, but what does it cost? Because I know that means they see a ton of value.
Right. They're expecting
that
it
sounds
to
like a scary question, but they're thinking in their head, holy, this is like a 12% commission, because this is a lot. And that's a good place for them to be, for me to say, well, that's a great question. I can tell you see a lot of value. And then I can go into my close, which is a very conversational close. Based on everything we've talked about, does it make sense for us to work together? But on the phone, the thing I want them to say, so in the initial consultation, I want them to say, wow, what does that cost? On the phone, I want them to say, like, man, I'm so glad we connected. What are the odds? Like, we're a perfect match for each other.
Right.
That's exactly what I needed, and I've never heard anybody offer that before. I didn't even know that's what I needed until we talked, right? So that's what being compelling, right? And not just being a robot that's willing to do the grind of the numbers, but being able to be like, time out. No way. Jeremy, hold on. Did you just tell me that your wife went to college here and you guys are wanting to move there and your kid need that and this is like your dude, that's exactly what we do. Like, this is where my wife went to school. This is what my kids need. Like, that's amazing. Now, obviously, the wife and the kids thing, like making connections and building rapport, that's natural. But being able to have that value stack and offer it in a way that you could be so compelling that somebody's like, listen, even if this guy's full of bull, it seems like it'll be fun to hang out for an hour. Like, I'll stop by, get a free cup of coffee. Seems like a super nice guy. You want to layer all of that, the stack and the value and the reasons, as well as this tone and this conversational relationship building attitude where somebody's like, that was kind of fun. That was engaging. That was not typical.
I forget where I heard this the first time I ever heard it. Because to get to that point where you're able to be compelling on their level, you have to kind of get past that initial piece of it. And it may have been you. I forget where I heard it first, but they basically said, picture like the most ideal person or the most comfortable person that you talk to regularly on the phone. That could be a friend, could be a family member, heck, it could be a past client, right? But somebody that you are just really, really comfortable talking with on the phone, and just imagine that's who you're calling.
Yeah, and hopefully that's your ideal
You're going to
client.
let your own guard down.
Right.
Because sometimes I think we're too guarded when we jump on the phone to be able to do it. So you let your own guard down.
Well,
and start
you've
that.
heard all sorts of negative responses and rebuttals, and so you're primed that that's what that person's going to say or do.
And to that point, this doesn't always happen in one phone call as much
Right.
as we wish it did, right? So for me, one of the important things in building the relationship over time is taking really good notes when you have a conversation.
Yeah.
Those random things, the name of their pet or where their wife went to college or whatever, like those things, because then you can pepper that back into your future
That's compelling.
conversations
Yep.
and say, because a lot of times they're going to forget. It's a 30-second phone call. They're going to move on. They've got stuff going on. So you've got to be able to remind them, hey, we had a really good conversation. I'm not just another sales guy calling you.
Yeah.
This is something that you care about, and let me remind you that you do really care about it.
If you don't think a call can pivot on remembering a pet's name or a college, they mentioned their wife went to Tennessee. And you're calling today, and you're like, dude, rough night. How's the wife doing? You're like, ooh, they should have won that game.
And
what a call. It's like, this guy's not trying to sell me something. That was kind of cool.
For the love of all things real estate, please follow up when you say you're going to follow up.
Oh my gosh, that's compelling enough. I mean, how many times do we get compliments where it's like, hey man, thanks so much for reaching back out. You're like, you asked me to call you Thursday. It's Thursday.
Forget compliments. How about clients? I get clients because I follow up, and they're like, you're the first person that's actually followed up when you said you were going to.
Yeah.
What do we need to do? And I've had at least 3 clients in the last 6 months just because I followed up.
One of my favorite voicemails that I leave for people is the person you call in the morning that tries to get off the phone, and you say, when do you want me to call you back? And they say, give me a call around 4. So you call them at 4, and they don't pick up because they're never going to pick up. And you leave them the voicemail that just says, hey, I spoke to you this morning, you asked me to give you a call back at 4, so I'm doing just that. Just give me a call when you get a chance.
Yep,
Just
it's
like,
4.
I'm doing exactly what you told me to do, and you just leave that voicemail.
Yep. So to get back to the root of our conversation before we wrap it up is you've got to give someone a compelling reason, not just an intelligent reason, not just an interesting reason, but compelling. And so the word compelling means literally to compel someone, to draw out of them a desire to move towards you, right? So that they feel super interested in moving that way, right? It's not, like we said, to tap out, to like, fine, okay, yes, like you guys not going to give up. It's not even to be like, yeah, that sounds interesting. It's so that they finish the call or standing at their door with you or at the open house with you or at an event with you where they're like, I really want to hear more about that. I really want to have a longer I really want that list. I really want to get a backstage pass to your MLS and see what you can show me. I want to move towards you. I want to go further down the process. We talk about moving the ball down the field. And to Jeremy's point, you're not going to go 100 yards in one play very often. It's not going to happen on the first call very much or the first visit. So you may, in your notes, say, hey, we moved it to the 10, we moved it to the 20, we're at the 50-yard line now. We have this conversation. They're checking on this. I told them I would send them that. And you're consistently layering that value stack with videos, white papers, free reports, checklists, do's and don'ts, that kind of stuff. Calls back, got some research, property valuation, tax valuation, all those things. And layering the value, but doing it in a compelling way so that ultimately they're like knocking on your door saying, hey, we're ready.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If you've heard Todd talk on any of our different channels, you'll know this doesn't all come overnight, right? You start out, it's a tool belt. You start out with a hammer, and every person you call, you beat them with that hammer.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right. And then you start adding these things on. And so if you're listening to this, you've got to think in your market with your state and your different regulations and everything going on, what is most valuable for people? What do people need? And then you start adding each of those things so that you are able to then take the cues that they give you on the phone and their personality assessment as you talk with them in person or over the phone. And you can start saying, all right, in this situation, it makes the most sense to add this type of value. It makes sense to compel them in this way, as opposed to just trying to hit them all with the property valuation.
It's a great final thought, and we'll wrap up. If you'd like more information about this or getting a listing a week, you can head over to alistingaweek.com, alistingaweek.com. We've got all kinds of free resources. We give people our home search lead follow-up script. It's a free download. We'll send that to you.
Can I get that? I don't know what I have.
Yeah, you're fired. You can get that with what to say, when to call, how many times to call, and all. It's mapped out. It's literally on a calendar. Like on Monday, do this many times for the leads that are this old. On Tuesday, this for those leads. And so that's all there. But what we're talking about today is not necessarily the structure and the repetitive nature of it. It's being compelling. It's having good things to offer and offering them in a way that people really, really want to lean into it. It's one of the most important ways to get a listing a week, or on the flip side, we do have a buyer a week program too. But if you're interested in information on any of this, or on the training, or how to begin to build your tool belt of being compelling and layer that on and build it over time, head over to alistingaweek.com. Alistingaweek.com. We'd be happy to get you some free info. Tune into the next show. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll get you new episodes in the future. We'll talk to you on the next one. Over and out.
Cheerio.
Cheerio, bloke.